Hi, welcome to Supervision with a Vision. Today, Heather and I are talking about social justice, counselors being advocates. This week, we read The Power of Counselor Advocacy, published in Counseling Today 2023. And Heather, our first point that we wanted to focus on is what is social justice? How are counselors introduced to the idea of social justice?
I think a lot of programs now talk about social justice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not all programs did before.
I think I'm trying to think. I think that a handful of programs that I've been involved in recently have an entire course, an entire 3 hour course on social justice. And
Mm-hmm.
my experience is like yours, that not all programs did that.
Right.
When do you think you saw a change?
I would say, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere in there, it started to be maybe a topic. But now it's the norm. Like now it's part of
right.
curriculum.
Now it gets such a big emphasis.
Right.
It's such a big focus. So you and I imagine that there are some counselors who are practicing that did not get this in school.
Absolutely.
And then there are some counselors who are more recently out of school and they have really gotten a big dose of this. Okay.
I mean, I can remember being in school and a professor like giving you like the part that you needed to be aware of when you were overstepping, right? And we'll get to that in a little bit. But I think that was the training then. I was 15, 16.
And we weren't calling it social justice.
No, we weren't calling it social justice.
So that's why we also wanted to talk about that language specifically. So
Right.
social justice is providing equal opportunities and rights. And you and I Googled it. We wanted to make sure we were talking about it the right way. And we found that there are actually 4 different types.
Right. And that's something I don't even remember learning at all until this article.
So the 4 different types are distributive, meaning everybody gets something.
Right.
Procedural, the processes are fair, which
For
allow
everyone, right?
right for everybody, which allows people better access, I guess. Retributive, meaning we're going to go back and try and correct old wrongs. And restorative, their definition of restorative is restoring relationships.
Right.
Can you think of some different examples of like how you can imagine explaining this to someone or what this actually looks like when it happens?
I think that I can't think of a concrete example, but something that my mind's going to right now, so maybe you can help me get there, is when I was doing my internship, we had a family center that reached out to the community. That was really big stance for them to reach the community. And no matter what, you did have to pay something, but we offered counseling services for $5. I mean, they tried to make it fair based on different things, based on income, based on different populations. But I don't think necessarily they did it well. I just think that was the first stab.
Well, I think that's an important part of us talking about social justice or counselors being advocates. It doesn't mean that all of us are killing it.
Right. It doesn't mean that we're doing it right.
This is hard.
Yeah,
it's complicated.
Right.
So you're saying one way that you saw that this center making an attempt at that was making the services themselves available.
Right.
To a wider variety of people.
Right.
Or available, the same service could be available to lots of people regardless of their resources.
Correct.
But maybe there was room for improvement.
Yeah, I think there probably is
now. What about, this is really hard for me to imagine, retributive or maybe even restorative social justice outside of what is actually happening in the counseling session.
Right.
How
because it's a bigger construct. I mean, it's not just
maybe making counseling available to a group of people who, in their history, have experienced a wrong.
Right. I mean,
with that kind of specific focus.
Right. I think also maybe in the restorative side, like really having an awareness and being open to the fact that you might not have a bias or anything against anyone coming in your office, but it might be brand new for them. Like the balancing, like going to therapy might in their culture be something that's not, done.
Okay, I wouldn't have thought of that in
the reverse.
And well, that form of social justice, restorative relationships, but it could be
right
because I can't. I'm having a hard time thinking of another example that fits.
Right.
So maybe it's a
little tricky in the therapy world.
So thinking of, I think this is important because we have this almost like a generation of counselors who maybe aren't as comfortable in this role, counselors as advocates, as a different generation of counselors who
Mm-hmm.
are more comfortable, because this is the example they were given from the get-go,
Right.
that counselors are advocates.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I think I mean, I can see both sides. I feel like I straddle the fence a little bit
I
between,
think I do too.
right, between a generation that wasn't thinking about advocacy and a generation that's very focused on advocacy as counselors, not
Right.
the general population, but generations of counselors. Um, what about um, lobbying for certain
Right.
rights
Mm-hmm.
or protesting
Right.
certain decisions or rights for different people? Do you do that as a counselor and say, I'm doing this as a counselor? Like,
Right.
you make that part of what you're doing. So,
Right.
I mean, I could go and protest for something and not wear my counselor t-shirt
Right.
and not be there as a counselor. I'm just there as me.
Mm-hmm.
But what this is talking about is going
And doing it as right.
yeah, with your counselor hat on,
Right.
with your counselor t-shirt on,
Right.
and saying, I'm a counselor and I'm here advocating for this right
Mm-hmm.
or this opportunity for somebody.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I get stuck because I was trained with a defining line of certain things,
Mhm.
but I think also, like, I get stuck because I'm like, well, even if I go to protest whatever it is, if I'm around and if I'm with people I
Right.
know, they know I'm a counselor, whether I'm
Right.
trying to be in a counselor mode or not.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I think there is that line of like, you can't always escape who
Yeah.
you are in the community,
Right.
regardless of.
So if if there's some kind of protest downtown this afternoon, and you go and you happen to see clients
Right.
there,
Right.
and whether they see that you are making an opinion, this is your opinion,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of which side of that fence you're on,
Right.
that they might be there on your side, or they might be there because they're on the other side.
Mhm.
And then what impact does that have?
Right. I mean, it's huge, right? It could go
Yeah.
either way. It could be
I think-
great and it could be horrible.
Mm-hmm. And I think, tell me if you think this is how you hear it or see this happening. I think that this younger, newer generation of counselors who've just been trained, who are learning this in school, don't find issue with that.
Not at all. They don't. I think they're
Right.
much.
I think a generation, and I hate to say older generation, but an older generation that wasn't trained with the idea of social justice being at the center of what it means to be a counselor is like either finding that difficult to wrap their head around, or saying, no, I am not out loud in
Saying
public
this.
saying,
Right.
making my opinion known.
Right.
That's not part of being a
Right.
counselor.
Right. And it's very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I had a supervisor before tell me that when they're done, like when they're with a client in a session and they're talking maybe about some of these social justice things, that the client should never know which side you stand on.
Yeah.
I mean, that was definitely taught to me. Like they should
never know your opinion.
Right. And I think that is not the same anymore. I
Right.
think that is definitely not taught anymore.
This is a different aspect of it. Recently, within the eating disorder professionals world, there is I wouldn't call it a textbook, but there's a book that was written by someone who identifies as being in the majority.
Okay.
When they wrote the book, they identified as female, white, cisgender, educated.
Okay.
So in the majority.
Right.
When they went to revise the book and create a new edition, they got a lot of flack for having the opportunity to do that.
Oh.
Because they're in the majority.
Uh-huh.
And so a lot of people said, you should step away from this and allow someone who's a minority
Mm-hmm.
to have an opportunity to do this. And I mean, that feels extreme to me.
It does feel extreme. That seems like a very extreme example.
I mean, in this discussion, and I am not at a level where I'm actually talking to the author or other people,
Right.
but just in a more local setting, I compared it to, so you, the counselor who's in the majority, white, female, educated, you should stop being a counselor because you're taking
Right.
away a job from another counselor that could be more diverse or in the minority. You should just go get a different job and quit being a counselor. I think it gets really
far.
complicated.
Yeah, it gets complicated. It goes too far. Yeah.
So we're naming ideas of social justice, or what is the role of a counselor as an advocate or a counselor involved in social justice that we're finding difficult. What's an example that you feel like is more clear cut and that lots of counselors could get behind and support?
I think lots of counselors take an oath of some part that is like, if you see harm, you're going to report it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's something all counselors get behind. And I don't think that will ever change. Like, I think no matter, that is something that's the same for everyone.
So like you and I see a fair amount of kids.
Right.
That if we saw a kid that in some way was at risk, that we would do the things that we have the ability to do to step in and intervene.
Right.
So we would make a phone call to Child Protective Services, or we would talk to schools.
Right. We would be figuring things out for the benefit of that child.
Yeah.
And I do think that does come into the role of advocacy, because sometimes they have parents that can't or won't.
I mean, that I offer, I don't know, I don't end up doing it a whole lot, but I always offer that if I'm seeing a kid, working with a kid that has a special education plan through the school, that I'm available to the kid or the family when they meet with the school.
Right.
So that I can help explain or advocate for special needs, special
supports, whatever they need to get. Yeah.
So I think most counselors would say that seems like a counselor role, and it seems important, seems beneficial to the people that they're working with. Can you think of any others that seem like we can probably all get behind that version of social justice?
Helping clients get connected if they need medical resources, like to get medications or things like that.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. I can see a flavor of counselor that would even find issue with that.
Yeah, maybe. But I think a lot. If you're just looking for the majority of people they would want to get behind. I mean, some counselors don't recommend medication, period.
No. Well, let's think about, I was going to use an example of, it's been a long time now, a student, maybe she was even a practicum or internship student in school still, and where there was a large focus on social justice. And she was so proud of herself. She came to class to say that she did this really great job, that she had an adult woman client that had a young child, and that in the session the mother said that she did not have resources to get the things that she needed for the baby. And so this very young counselor felt like she was doing great advocacy and social justice, put the mom in her car, baby seat in the back seat with the baby, drove this little family to Walmart, bought all of the things that mom said she needed for the baby out of her own pocket, and gave this as a great example of social justice. And I went, no, don't do that again.
Please don't do that.
I get why you feel like she needed it, but what are other ways that this could have happened that don't involve you spending your money, putting clients in your car?
That's always scary.
Yeah, dangerous. Dangerous for lots of reasons, and everybody involved. Yeah. So that, I think, brings us conveniently to our next point. Where is the line? So in this example, you're saying advocating for getting things that the client needs, medication. What if we're even talking about diapers or formula, or what's something else you can think of that they might need that you think that's a resource? Food. Yeah. Oh, that's a great one, right? Then maybe they're saying there's no food at home, and you know where there's a food pantry, or something like that.
So I think it's about connecting them with the services. For me, I mean, I think the line is a little different for everyone. For me, it's about connecting them with the services and really helping them follow through. Like, if they're not going to follow through to call and get an appointment at the food pantry, or to call and do things, then using your time in session could be valuable to do that. Now, I'm also a big believer that, like, to do this correctly, like, you present the opportunity to the client. It is the client's job to, I'm not going to drive them to the food pantry. I'll gladly tell them where it is and how to get, and how to start that process.
Okay. So you're describing, I think, if you teach a man to fish
Kind of.
versus if you give
Right.
them a fish.
Right.
So you're saying you are totally on board for teaching someone how to fish,
Hmm.
but
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey, quick question for you. Are you someone who wants to be fit, healthy, and happy? And what if I told you you could get your dream body by simply just listening to a podcast? I'm Josh.
And I'm KG, and we're the hosts of the Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast.
Listen, we get it. Fitness isn't easy. Carbs, no carbs.
Just stop, okay? It doesn't have to be that complicated. And that's why we made this podcast. We get straight to the facts so you can become your best you.
So the way to check us out is click the link in the show notes or search Fit, Healthy, and Happy podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. We'll see you soon.
not necessarily just feeding them all the time.
All the time. I'm
Oh.
gonna use that caveat.
Okay.
Caveat.
So when would you,
I think
in in
yeah.
our analogy, feed them?
right. I think in crisis situations, like
Okay.
if I find, I mean, if I need to jump in and be an advocate in an emergency situation, that's very different, and I'm okay with like crossing whatever line I need to make sure a kid has food to eat. I think I'd probably go above and beyond than if it was just like something that maybe doesn't seem as important. Like new clothes can be not as urgent.
I was talking to, I'm picturing the kid's face, but she was telling me that it was a while ago, that she had a teacher that really cared about her, and maybe it was really icy. There was some reason why the school
Mhm.
building was closed, and this kid was young
Mm-hmm.
and got free breakfast.
Oh yeah.
And that the principal was worried about the kids that went to his school that got
That's
free
amazing.
breakfast, and got a bunch of stuff
Mhm.
and drove to the houses of those kids and dropped off stuff.
Fantastic. Love it.
But I think when you're describing this, I'm imagining, you just said cross any line. I'm imagining any line means the principal drops off food and says, "Where's your kitchen?"
oh.
and then makes oatmeal for
Right,
everybody.
Right.
But I
Right.
think that one of our examples of social justice was figuring out how to get people resources.
Right.
So maybe, but that's what we're talking about. That this
Mhm.
line it's complicated.
It's
there's-
situational,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've had plenty of clients come through my office throughout the years, even young adults, right? They just
Mhm.
don't know how to do things. And it's
Mhm.
really for them about, oh, actually there is this something that can help you.
Yeah.
That's very different than, and they might be more motivated to do it depending on their situation than like us working with a child and figuring out there's some drastic things going on at home that
Yeah.
need more intervention.
Yeah.
So there's always, it moves.
Yeah. I don't know if I know I've talked to you some about working at the homeless shelter.
Mhm.
That was my last setting that I was in while I was still in school, and I was there for a long time. So I spent
Mhm.
maybe 9 months
Okay.
there, pretty full time.
Hmm.
One of my takeaways was, and I feel like this being there pushed a lot of those buttons. I had to think
Right.
about that a lot. So one example would be there was a charter school on campus on this
Mhm.
really big homeless shelter, and the homeless shelter provided 3 meals a day to the families
great.
that lived there, so
Okay.
they were not hungry.
Right.
But I would sometimes go to get these kids, and I was probably picking them up mid-afternoon during their school day,
Mhm.
and bringing them to walking them to the counseling room. And because situationally I didn't know if they had just gotten to the homeless
Right.
shelter, if they'd been there a while. I didn't always know what I was getting as soon as I got them.
Exactly.
That I had a little stash of snacks.
Mm-hmm.
And they came from the homeless shelter, so I wasn't paying for them, but I think I kept like 2 cartons of chocolate milk,
Mm-hmm.
two apples. So kid-friendly stuff, but it wasn't like I didn't have a stash of candy.
Mm-hmm.
But I offered pretty regularly. Like, I would ask, like, "Are you hungry? Do you want something to drink before we start?"
Mm-hmm.
And I would offer whatever little
Yeah.
thing I had. And when I do remember when I was doing that as a student, that I had classmates that questioned me doing that.
Yeah, I can see it. Again, I think that's the line, right? Like
Right.
you have to figure out context to it because I wouldn't even now, and even back however long ago that was, I wouldn't have, that to me is what you need to do your job in the setting you were in.
Right. I do remember one kid that he was hungry, and had I not offered the apple, I think he would have been focused on I'm hungry
I'm hungry.
instead of
yeah.
doing what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
Another situation there that I definitely I had a hard time wrapping my head around, but it really has stuck with me. The person that did orientation for employees,
right.
volunteers, everybody at the homeless shelter, he said, under no circumstances do you ever give someone money.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever give someone something that's yours,
Mm-hmm.
or do you offer them a ride?
Okay.
And in that orientation, a lot of people went, like, why? Or, I
Right.
mean, and they were trying to see that there could be an exception to that. But a little bit, because I was scared
Mm-hmm.
and I was young,
Right.
I wanted to follow the rules. I did that. But also kept my eyes open and was trying to think critically about, well, why is that
Right.
important?
Right.
Or is there a time where there's an exception? And I stick to that now.
It's a great rule.
And his reasoning was that the resources are here,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're giving them something that they could get through the appropriate
Right.
steps, then they don't end up taking the appropriate steps to get it. So then it's hard to account for what the actual need is.
Right.
And also, the steps are there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So in our definition of social justice, one of the examples was procedural
Right.
social justice. So that's
Great
part
example.
of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of all the time that I spent there, the one exception I made was that because I was always busy as a student,
Mm-hmm.
I had a case of water in the back of my car
Mm-hmm.
because I was thirsty, and where I was at, it was really, really hot. And so if I saw someone
Mm-hmm.
standing in the sun,
Mm-hmm.
maybe they were like asking for money or something, or asking for food, and I stopped and could do it, I would roll my window down and offer a bottle of water,
Right.
and thought that feels like
Feels
almost
acceptable.
mean, water, a
Right.
necessity,
Right.
and something that's not totally out of reach. But
Right.
yeah, so the line is hard. It's hard to know where to draw the line.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And maybe between you and I and all of our examples, we're also saying it's a conversation.
Right.
That any two counselors are going to find situations where they think about it differently, but we need to be willing to talk
Mm-hmm.
about it with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, our final point is, how can counselors challenge the way they look at social justice?
Right. I think that goes to the same, like, don't avoid the CEs that come through. If you haven't been taught it and you don't understand it, well, definitely dive in, because you need to be current, number one. But then also just have an open mind. I mean, consider that you don't know everything. All you know is what they tell you in session. You actually don't know a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to keep an open mind and be aware of times that you could be helpful.
Maybe from that your
Mhm.
statement, I'm thinking it means everyone, people who have been taught social justice,
Right.
people who weren't taught social justice, need to challenge themselves to look at things from a different perspective.
Right.
And I think that I'm thinking right now about all of the counselors who maybe did have an entire 3-hour class on social justice, that they need to challenge themselves.
Right.
What like the student who put the mom in the car and went to and bought whatever they
Right.
bought, and that she thought that was a great example of social justice.
Right.
But that seems very dangerous,
Right.
and certainly there are procedures for that mom to get those kinds of things, and not just once.
Right.
To me,
Can
that's
be-
one of the issues I see with that, is
Right.
that mom got what she needed that one day, but does she know what to do next time?
Right. Does she know how to get her systems set up so that she can
Mhm.
continue to get support?
Yeah, so no matter where we are on this spectrum of understanding or having been taught social justice or not, we need to continue to challenge
Right.
ourselves to look at what that means. Do you think that in terms of social justice, or in terms of social justice as a counselor?
Ooh, I think in terms of social justice, probably.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think as a counselor, yes, we can always do better, but
Oh, I mean together.
oh yeah.
Like, I mean, well,
I know it's question, right? Like I went one
Yeah.
way and then went the other real quick.
I mean, I think I meant, what I meant when I said it at first was, are we just asking ourselves, what's the definition of social justice and what does that mean? Or are we asking ourselves today, with my counselor hat on, what does social justice mean for a counselor?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you made me think, wait, are we questioning what a counselor is? And I think yes to all three.
I've had a supervisee recently talk in supervision about like, I know I crossed that counseling line, and I was like, what do you mean? And she explained that, you know, she really did in session call to get the psychiatric appointment to make sure this client would go. And I said, well, I don't know that you necessarily, in this situation, I don't know that you crossed the line.
Yeah.
You did what was right for your client. I don't, you know.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, we're not saying the line disappeared.
Right. Just,
We're saying the line is confusing.
right. And
But there-
probably moves. Like it probably
Right.
changes.
But do you think that there is still a line?
Yes. Yeah. I think there is somewhat of a line.
Mm-hmm. And I think we're emphasizing the line is not the same every single time or for every single
No.
client or for every single counselor, but there is a line.
Yes. There you go.
Maybe that's a good
point.
Yeah, a good way to end is there is a line. We need to still make sure that we
Right.
all know and remember that there is a line.
Right.
It's just really confusing.
And talk it through with somebody. If you're not sure, just talk
Yeah.
it through with a colleague.
Heather and I would love to hear how you navigate between being a counselor and being an advocate and finding that line for yourself. And as always, we would love to hear about any episode suggestions. Thanks for listening to Supervision with a Vision.